Okay, welcome. We're here at Serneholt Estate, Marbella, in the center of Marbella. And my name is Daniel Gonzalez. I'm from Serneholt Estate, and with me I have Anna from Cano Cano. So today we're going to go through the buying process, and like everybody knows, it's many questions, and hope we can answer everything today with help with our expert Anna from Cano Cano. So the first contact usually the clients get with you, Anna, is when we have the reservation contract. And talk us a little bit through it, and tell us what they need to know and what's the most common mistakes also.
That's correct, Danilo. Many times the first time we get in contact or in touch with the client, they're just about to sign a reservation contract. Now, this contract is usually prepared and drawn up by the real estate agent. And we oftentimes revise it before the clients actually sign, because what's very important to take into consideration is that the reservation contract is the base for the whole operation. It's the basis for the whole purchase process. So it does need to contain all the basic conditions of the sale and the purchase.
And is it when, for example, if we have missed something, or something is missing in the reservation, is something that you can add afterwards before the purchase to proceed?
We can, but if both parties agree, because once the reservation contract is signed, you cannot oblige either one of the parties to add or to remove anything from the reservation contract. So our advice is always to be as informed as possible before signing the reservation contract, and to fully agree on all the basic conditions. The purchase price, what is included, is it sold with or without furniture? Is it partly furnished? Is it sold with a fully equipped kitchen? Does it include all the white goods? But also things like the time frame. When can the purchaser complete? Do they have the finances in order already? Do they need a mortgage, and so on?
And what would you say, like, what's the fastest if you have everything on place? Let's say we have a AAA client that has everything on place. How fast can it go?
Well, it depends a little bit. There's nothing written in stone, obviously, so it's still something that needs to be agreed between the parties. I mean, does the vendor live in the property? When can he or she vacate the property? Let's say it's a vacation property. Nobody is currently living in the property. Both parties wish to complete as soon as possible. I would probably say if we have all the legal documentation at our disposal as soon as possible, I believe the quickest process that we have ever handled took about 2 weeks.
Oh, that's
so
good.
About 14 days, but that was very fast. Yes.
Then you would say it takes longer time than 2 weeks.
It usually does take considerably longer than 2 weeks.
Usually clients come here and it's their first time, and they don't have the NIE number here in Spain that you need. And is it something they need to have, or can they wait with it after the reservation contract? Because you usually can use something else like identity in the reservation contract as?
Well, the NIE number is basically what it is. It's an identification number for foreigners, but it is necessary in order to purchase a property here. However, you're correct in saying that it is not necessary to have the NIE number already in place to sign a reservation contract. In the reservation contract, you can use another type of identification document. It could be a passport or a national identification card or number from your home country.
So how long time does it take to get this NIE number here in Spain?
Well, it usually doesn't take very long nowadays. It did take a little longer before, but this is something that we arrange for the client. It's part of our services when we represent a client in the purchase process. So we try to obtain an appointment with the police as soon as possible to apply for the NIE number. So we do have it in place in time for completion.
What's the most common mistake that you get on the table from maybe us as a real estate or as clients?
I would say that the reservation document lacks some type of specific condition which either the vendor or the purchaser wants to include. in the sale or the purchase. Maybe they had a verbal agreement, or maybe the purchaser was under the impression that the property was going to be sold furnished, but it wasn't included in the reservation contract. So I would say probably that something is missing from the reservation contract, a basic condition.
Now to the signing of the reservation contract. What should the client consider before signing the reservation contract?
Well, he or she needs to be fully aware of what is it they want. What type of conditions do they want to include in their purchase or in the sale of their property? Now, this can concern everything from price and what is included, or the time frame. When do they need or when do they want access to the property? Or as a vendor, when can I vacate my home? When can I have my property emptied, for example, of furniture, if the furniture is not included, and so on. So I think it's very important to be fully aware of just the basic general conditions. What do I need and when do I need it?
Okay. Many clients that come here and buy a property are not Europeans. We have like around 150, 155 nationalities here.
Yeah.
I think you meet everything from different languages, different cultures.
That's
and most of them come here and buy a property and want to have this called golden visa. Can you talk us a little bit about that?
Well, that's correct. I mean, the golden visa has been a very interesting option for non-European residents, and it consists in the possibility of applying for a resident visa. To be able to apply for the golden visa, you need to buy a property, or it can be several properties, but with a total minimum value of at least €500,000. And you need to purchase it cash, that is to say, without a mortgage. Now then you can, once the purchase process is done, you may apply for the golden visa. And it can be renewed after 12 months.
And that's important what you're saying, because you need to apply after.
That's
you
correct.
purchase. And it
Yes.
takes from that day that you, let's say you get the keys for the property, how long time does it take to get the golden visa?
It depends. It differs from one situation to the next. Obviously, first you do need to complete the purchase process, and you need to be registered as the owner of the property or the properties that you've purchased. Now then, the application process, it can differ from one case to the next. Now, there are several requirements. There are a few documents that you need to provide the authorities with in order to apply. So it's almost impossible to say exactly how long it takes. And obviously there are no guarantees that you will obtain the golden visa once you have purchased.
Yeah.
You have to fulfill certain basic requirements.
Exactly, because many clients come here and think, okay, I bought a property, perfect, I have the golden visa. But it takes time, and you need to come with.
It does. You need to have a little bit of patience, and I think you also need to be aware of that some of the documents that are required may disqualify you automatically for the golden visa. As an example, you have to provide a criminal record certificate from your home country, from the countries where you have resided in during the last 5 years, which obviously need to be completely clean.
Yeah.
So yes, it's not something that everyone is a candidate for, unfortunately.
Okay, so let's say if everything is in order,
Yes.
what would you say that how long does it take them to get the golden visa? And also, are there other terms that they can get another kind of visa here in Spain?
What I would say, if the applicant has all the correct documentation in order, it can take around maybe 1 to 2 months to actually obtain the golden visa. So it's not something that drags on. I mean, you can obtain it fairly fast, to be honest. Now, if you're not a candidate for the golden visa, there are a couple of interesting alternatives. An interesting option is the digital nomad visa. Now, this is intended for non-European citizens who wish to work and live in Spain. Now, the condition is that they need to be employed by a foreign company or work as a freelancer. In the event that they're freelancers, their client base need to be at least 80% non-Spanish companies or non-Spanish nationals.
So usually when we do the reservation contract, we have something that calls inventory list that we do after they have signed the reservation contract to see what's included there. Talk us a little bit about that and what should they think of before also signing that part.
Well, this is something that we strongly recommend that the purchaser and the vendor or their respective agents draw up if the property is purchased furnished or partly furnished. Now, the inventory list can be either in writing or it can include photographs of all the furniture and the decorative items included in the sale. It's a strong recommendation to draw this up, and if not already, to have it in place when they sign the reservation agreement, at least have it prepared for the next step, which is the private purchase contract, when the purchaser pays usually a 10% down payment of the property. Now, the reason why we recommend this is to avoid any unnecessary quarrels or misunderstandings even in regards to what is included and not.
So has it been sometimes that we take an example, it's missing some items from the inventory list and the clients get the keys, access the home, and for example, the TV is not there. That should be included. What should the client do?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a very common occurrence, because when there is an inventory list attached to the contract, usually both parties, or in this case the vendor, does respect the agreement. Now, of course, this is based on the goodwill of both parties. The purchaser needs to trust the vendor to respect the inventory list, but of course it does happen. It's usually down to some type of misunderstanding. So I would say if you have a very detailed as possible of an inventory list, the risk of this happening is not very great, but of course it does happen. And when it does, the best thing is to try to come to some sort of an agreement afterwards with both parties. And my impression is that this is usually something that can be done and is done.
So we have different clients. Some clients are cash buyers. That means that they don't need a mortgage, and then the process is shorter.
Yes.
But what happens when the client needs a mortgage? How long does it take?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, it's very important already from the beginning, even before signing the reservation agreement, to be fully aware of the conditions. What do I need and what do I want as a purchaser? Now, if you don't have the financing already prepared and you do need a mortgage, now this can be a mortgage in a Spanish bank, or it can perhaps even be a mortgage in a foreign bank or in a bank in your home country. Now, obviously, then that means the process takes a little bit longer, and it's very, very important. And I find it that most purchasers underestimate the time it does take to apply and to get a mortgage in a Spanish bank. So I would recommend for a Spanish mortgage to consider at least a couple of months before completing. Now, if you apply for a mortgage in your home country, in a different country, it may take considerably shorter. But in Spain, due to certain legislation and bureaucracy and paperwork, it does take about a couple of months roughly.
So we talked about the reservation contract. What happens next? What's the next step after that?
Yes. Well, usually what is called a private purchase contract is signed around a couple of weeks, 14 days after the reservation contract. Now, this is a slightly longer, slightly more important contract. Now, as a purchaser, you usually pay a down payment to the vendor of roughly 10% of the total purchase price. And that includes then a reservation fee that you have already paid. But this contract is more detailed, and it includes any other condition still pending, perhaps from the due diligence or the legal investigations of the property that has yet to be completed. Now, this would be the second step for a purchaser. The third step is completion. And the completion date is usually agreed already in the reservation contract, but it is also included in the private purchase.
Step number 3 is the notary day. And how much do the client needs to pay? And Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
How much the purchaser needs to pay on completion completely depends on how much have they already paid. How much did they pay when they reserved the property, and how much did they pay when they signed the private purchase contract, which we spoke about, which is step 2. Now, usually, by the time they get to completion, a purchaser has paid 10% of the purchase price. So naturally, they need to settle the outstanding amount, 90% of the purchase price. Now, it's important to take in consideration that for completion, you also need to have the financing ready and in place for all the extra fees and taxes and so on.
And another question many clients ask, do they need to be here at the completion day or at the notary?
Well, I would say we at Cano Cano Lawyers work through powers of attorney. I would say almost 10 out of 10 clients give us a power of attorney to handle the entire purchase process. Now, in this case, they do not need to be present at the actual completion at the notary, which in all honesty can be quite a tedious affair. So this is something that we take care of. We take care of the final payment and all the paperwork, and we collect the keys from the vendor or the vendor's lawyer at the notary. Now then the purchaser can come whenever they have the possibility or when they wish to come and take possession of the property.
Sounds super easy. Okay, thank you for coming in and talking to me today and letting us know a little bit how the buying process goes. And yeah, feel free to contact us if you have any questions, or of course to Anna from Cano Cano. Thank you.
Thank you.